Amidst all the fervor surrounding BYU football, currently ranked 17th in the country and undefeated at the moment, there is another BYU program getting ready for a highly anticipated season. That's Kevin Young. That's the BYU men's basketball program. He had some interesting thoughts on what he expects from his squad, as well as what the plan is they plod their way through training camp. We're talking about that and also catching up with BYU football commit LaMason Waller.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Jake Hatch, your host here on Locked On Cougars, resident BYU insider. Thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first view or listen of the day. And of course, a big thank you to all of you once again who are everydayers right here on your original daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right, let's talk some BYU basketball. Yes, I know it's football season. Yes, I know BYU football 17th, ranked 5-0. Ranked 17th is 5-0 on the season, I should say. But this BYU basketball team continues to draw headlines, and it's not far off before we see them taking the court. Actually, be able to see them on the court later this week, tomorrow, in fact, with the Cougar Madness event they're going to have at the Marriott Center. It's open to the public. If you want to go out and enjoy it, I would encourage you to do so. Their first actual on-court action, as I understand it, will become next week on October 9th when they will participate in their annual blue and white scrimmage. That is very early for a blue and white scrimmage, but as I was talking with one member of BYU staff, is that Kevin Young just wants to get it out of the way. He wants to let Cougar Nation get a feel for what this BYU team has. The new faces, obviously, Jaeger Demon, Cannon Catchings, on down the list. You just look at all the different bodies BYU has brought in to this squad. It's going to take some, quote, getting to know you, unquote, period, to really get a feel for this squad. The bigger point to be made here is Kevin Young spoke yesterday to the media and made it very clear that he is far from establishing who is starting five and even who his rotation is going to be with this BYU basketball squad. Some of you may say, well, that's a concern. It's not a concern. Now, was it coach speak? Was it him out there just saying, hey, I want everybody to stay engaged? Maybe so. But I actually am inclined to believe that Kevin Young really doesn't know what his rotation is going to be, and more importantly, who his starting five are going to be. This is a roster. We have talked about it often throughout this offseason. The way it's been made up by Kevin Young and company with the BYU basketball program is it's one of the deepest, most talented on paper that BYU has literally ever seen. That is going to cause all kinds of ripple effects. Obviously, there's going to be guys who in previous years would have been potentially starters, if not outright rotation pieces, who may find themselves on the outside of the rotation simply due to the fact that the roster is that talented, that deep, and is that competitive. The other part of it is I think that Kevin Young is still adapting to life with college basketball. You heard him talk yesterday about the fact that in the NBA, you have 4 12-minute quarters and you get set to these rotations. And if you have watched NBA basketball, you almost set your watch to some of how these rotations would go. I feel like the first 3 minutes of a game, you'd see the first rotation of maybe 2 or 3 guys in and out of the lineup. And then by the end of the quarter, you've had the other 3 rotate out. And like I said, it's a very, very set and kind of rote thing when it comes to the NBA. As Kevin Young acknowledged yesterday, he's adapting to a new life. He has to adapt to 20-minute halves in college basketball, men's college basketball. Also has to deal with the fact that there are TV timeouts after every 4 minutes. And is that going to affect how he rotates things? He is still, I think, trying to get his feet wet, proverbially, to get BYU basketball where they need to be. I think this is going to be a feeling out process across the board for the BYU basketball program, Kevin Young included. He's got guys like Chris Burgess on his staff who have worked in the college game for long enough, can obviously help him in that regard. Doug Stewart, his chief of staff, was a basketball coach for a long time as well. And there's other guys on that staff who have played the college game, etc. So it's not that he's wholly unfamiliar with the nuances of college basketball. But when you've been a career assistant, he spent exactly, I think, 1 year at UVU, at what was then UVSC, working as an unpaid assistant on the staff over there at UVU before embarking on his professional basketball career. Well, when you've been in the NBA as long as he has, both in the G League as well as the actual National Basketball Association, you get used to how things work. Coming back to this level is going to take some time for him to obviously get ingrained and understand, like I said, the nuances of what college basketball all entails. I'm not concerned that Kevin Young won't figure it out. I'm not saying that. I'm just going to say right now, I really don't think he knows who his starting five are going to be right now, because he's still got a month till the season really gets going. And oh, by the way, he's also going to have 13 non-conference games to figure it out and really kind of buckle down on what his best rotation is going to be. He acknowledged yesterday that he has no idea how big of a rotation he really wants to run. I think any good coach will fit a rotation that obviously comprises the best of his talent, whether that's 6, 7, 8, you get to 9, maybe 10 people. That may be just a tad bit too much, but I trust that Kevin Young will get this figured out. He is a savvy individual. You hear him talk to the media, and he kind of demonstrates like this kind of laissez-faire attitude, but you also can tell that there's a fire in there. There's a passion that he has for the game of basketball. And I think that's going to come out as we start to see BYU basketball actually take the court here and do what they're doing. Is it going to be dynamite right from the get-go? Anybody's guess as to what it's actually going to look like when they take the court. But I am excited. I am very excited to see what BYU has got in store. Another little tidbit, it was interesting to come out of this conversation, is that he is still also figuring out what all entails with eligibility for college basketball players. Kind of funny to hear him talk about Boscovich, who is a new addition, obviously, Mihailo Boscovich, a 6'10" forward. He said this: to be determined when it was asked if Boscovich is a freshman, he said, quote, "I am learning about NCAA eligibility rules on the fly, brother. Trust me. It is definitely complicated. All jokes aside, I am learning on the fly with all of this stuff," unquote. It's just kind of case in point, I should say, with regards to how he is operating. I think he's going to get it right. I think BYU basketball is in for a really, really fun season ahead. There's going to be ups, maybe some downs, some bumpy stuff maybe early on. And like I said, as Kevin and the rest of the BYU basketball staff, as well as roster, kind of get used to working with one another. But I'm telling you, the talent, the coach is in place. It feels like all the pieces are there for BYU to start the KYU era, as I like to call it, with aplomb. And I'm looking forward to what happens. And I'll obviously be watching the Cougar Madness. I won't be there because I got some other family responsibilities, but I plan on being at the Marriott Center all season long when it comes to these games. And oh, by the way, a sellout. They've sold out every single seat in the house at the Marriott Center for this season. It is going to be truly one of the best home atmospheres in all of college basketball. It already was that way, but the fact that it's completely sold out and it's going to be a hot ticket to get, that means it should be even more of a home court advantage for BYU basketball. So it's looking like it's going to be a really, really fun season ahead. And it was interesting to hear Kevin talk about his adaptation to what life is like for him. And I can appreciate his candor. But also, like I said, he's got vigor. He's got just passion. You can tell he loves this game of basketball. And I think he's very, very intent on getting it right with the BYU men's basketball program. All right, coming up here in just a minute, we're going to catch up with the BYU football commit, LaMason Waller. A lot of you have probably seen him. He's posted on social media a lot about unofficial visits he made to BYU. I decided, you know what? Let's catch up with him and talk about why he picked BYU. A kid from Southern California, no religious ties to BYU and then sponsoring church institution, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But as you will learn, he's got some friends who got some ties to BYU that helped push it. But there's one person above all others who essentially got him to commit to BYU. He'll explain who that is next, right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Now, Game Time is here for you guys no matter what event you want to go out to. Sporting events like BYU sports, comedy, theater, music, whatever you're into, they've got the tickets for you guys. They got a brand new feature on their app called the Game Time Picks feature. Makes getting your tickets to your favorite live events even easier than ever. It filters out all the fluff to show you the incredible deals amongst the thousands of tickets on their platform to get you the right price. And the best part is finding the best deal for you as well. I also love I talk about it all the time, the all-in toggle feature in the app. You toggle it, you know exactly what the price is, including all of the fees. No getting to the checkout screen and getting hit with it feels like an avalanche of fees that seem to double or triple your price. You'll know exactly what it is right up front. So take the guesswork out of buying your tickets and do it with our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Once again, some terms apply to this, but create an account, redeem the promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's Locked On College for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first view and or listen of the day. Would encourage you guys, if you did not do so, check out the Locked On College Football Podcast. Dear friend of mine, Spencer McLaughlin, is the host of that show, covering all things college football. If you are a college football junkie like I am, it is the podcast for you. So I like to say it we say it on this podcast a lot, make it your second listen of the day. That's Locked On College Football, wherever you get your podcasts, also available on YouTube. And of course, it's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, the BYU wide receiver position obviously is one of importance for BYU's offense. Aaron Roderick likes to have high-level receivers for his quarterbacks to throw the ball to. Obviously, any quarterback worth their you-know-what wants to have the best talent around him that he can distribute the ball to. We have seen Chase Roberts, Darius Lassiter, or even in the past, we've seen guys like Cody Epps have really, really good runs at wide receiver. And by the way, good wishes or well wishes go out to Cody Epps as he left that game against Baylor early. So fingers crossed that he will be good to go against Arizona. But I think BYU's wide receiver position has seen a major uptick in interest from recruits. Obviously, when you have a guy like Puka Nacua go out and do what he did as a rookie last year for the Los Angeles Rams, and everyone's like, where's this kid from? Oh, he's from Brigham Young University. Well, okay. And I think that has played a major, major role in BYU being able to go out and sell what BYU is to recruits. It doesn't hurt that BYU is a Big 12 school. That absolutely is an ace up their sleeve to be a Power 4 program and be in what many consider to be at least the third best league in the country. And obviously, when you're ranked 17th in the country and 5-0, guess what? There are kids who are saying, okay, what's BYU doing here? Why should I pay more attention to this school? Should I be paying more attention to that school? There's all of that and more when it comes to the recruiting process. But I had an opportunity to catch up with a guy who committed to BYU before BYU got off to this hot start. He actually committed way back in June after an official visit to BYU's campus in Provo. His name is LaMason Waller. I had a great opportunity to catch up with him earlier this week ahead of him finally making his season debut for his new high school team. So without further ado, here you go, LaMason Waller with myself right here on Locked On Cougars. Thank you for taking the time and congratulations on your commitment to BYU. You've been pretty outspoken about being a BYU Cougar. I wanted to ask you just first off, why pick BYU?
Fesi, the program, just the culture. I really love that guy. Like, that's my dude, man. He just never gave up on me. He just kept fighting, and he got me for sure.
Now, I've known Coach Sitake, speaking of Fesi Sitake, for quite some time, and I can assure you that you are not the first nor will be the last who will say that he might be the reason why they picked BYU. What was the impetus for building a relationship with him? What was his overall message to you when he first got to know you?
Just being so real. He let me know the truth from day one. He's never lied to me. Just always kept it 100. Told me that he wanted me since day one. Just never really let off. Like, he's stayed on me every day, and that's just my dude.
Now, obviously, you're going to be coming to BYU not too distant future, but you made a transfer this year in terms of high schools, and we've not seen you on the field quite yet. You'll be making your debut later this week on Thursday, finally. How eager are you to finally get back out there and get back to playing football?
I think I'm so excited. Like, I think I'm a little too excited, but I'm very eager. I'm ready to get out there with my guys. They've been doing their thing. We're 5-0 right now, so just ready to get to work, man, honestly.
Okay, so 5-0, you're obviously going to be hoping to push it to 6-0 and even make it even better, right?
For sure. 10-0, that's the goal for the end of this season.
Now, obviously, that's the goal for everybody. It feels like when they go into a season of this caliber. You've been watching BYU up close as well, and funny enough, they're 5-0 as well. Give me your impressions of so far how BYU's been performing from your perspective.
Well, they've been performing really great. All the receivers been eating. Darius, what he had, 8 catches, 140 in the tub. Chase been doing his thing. Just everybody's been contributing. The games has been amazing. I've been watching all the games. I just can't wait to get there. I'm excited, man.
Now, you've made some unofficial visits this season up there. Have there been any guys like a Darius or maybe a Keelan Marion, et cetera, who have built relationships with you in terms of just, saying, hey, come play here?
For sure. Reiner, Keelan, Darius, Parker, Trey, Noah. I actually grew up with Noah Lugo, Jake. Everybody's been showing me a lot of love. They all can't wait for me to get up there. Those are my dudes for sure.
Hold on. I didn't know you had a connection to Noah Lugo. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
We actually grew up, so we played youth football all our life together out here, and then he moved to Texas when we were like 10 years old.
Okay, so you know him for quite a while then.
Yeah, that's my guy. I've known him ever since I was 6 years old.
So did you know that he had committed to BYU when you first got started recruiting? How did you make that connection?
Well, I've been knowing he's a year older than me, so when he committed, he actually sent me a picture of Fesi. I'm like, that's my dude. And when he committed, and then the rest is just history. Like, I don't know.
What has he had to tell you about that? 'Cause he's been in the program now for a little bit. What's he been telling you about the football program?
He just tell me everything I see when I go out there, it's the truth. Like, it's real. They're not going to change. Like, they're going to be the same way when I get in the building as they are right now. And that's my dude. I believe him 100%.
So are you planning on, hooking up with Noah Lugo for touchdowns in the near future? For
sure. We have to. That's that 760 connection. We bringing it to Provo for sure.
I like that. Now, you've talked about a guy like Reiner Swanson. Reiner's from Southern California as well. Did you have any connection to him before this?
No, not really, but Bryce. So me and him play sevens together. That's my dude. Okay. And Reiner's his guy. So we're just all pretty cool, You
mentioned you got connections everywhere. I wanted to ask you, well, what's your connection with a guy like Bryce? Can you give us a scouting report of what BYU fans can expect from a guy like that?
Big body. That's my dude. He going to go win every 50-50 ball. Just give him a chance. He'll come down with the ball for sure. That's my guy.
Now, you mentioned Fesi's a big reason why you picked BYU. But you also had to come up here and fall in love with the school and everything, the community around it. What sold you on coming to Provo, Utah and Brigham Young University?
It's just so different. Like I've never experienced nothing like BYU. So I think that's pretty much the main thing, honestly. Just I'm going to get a new lifestyle there with people that I actually care about and people that I know care about me. So for sure.
Now, you probably had conversations with Kalani Sitake. What have those conversations been like? What has he been telling you about the program?
He just tell me like it's real. Like whatever they're telling me, they're going to stand on their word, and they'll be there. They'll be my coaches for my whole time at BYU. I don't have to worry about them leaving. They're loyal to the program, and they just want to see BYU be great again. They all played there. They all know the program real well. So it's a great fit and a great environment for me for sure.
You talked about the alumni connection. Obviously, offensive coordinator Aaron Roderick is a former Cougar and plays a very pass-happy offense and a wide receiver-centric offense, it feels like. Is that attractive to you as well?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. They're throwing the ball a lot. The receivers are making plays. I just want to come in there and contribute.
What are you expecting from this team down the stretch, obviously? Because your team, obviously, you're playing for right now. You said you want to go 10-0. You expecting 12-0 from this BYU squad?
For sure. We're rolling right now. For sure.
All right. Well, I guess last thing for me, give us a scouting report of yourself. I'm sure Cougar fans are saying, okay, I've heard about LaMason, but share with us what BYU fans expect from you once you hit the field in Provo.
You just have to wait to find out. They're gonna get a dog out of me for sure. I just wanna show them, my guy.
Okay. Well, I can appreciate that. Well, LaMason, appreciate the time, and we look forward to seeing you out here in Provo soon enough. Obviously, I'm sure we'll be making some more trips out this season when you give the opportunity. But once again, thanks for taking the time to join us here on the podcast.
Oh, yeah, appreciate you, my guy. I'm going to try to come out there for the Arizona game, so I need all the fans to get right with me.
I'm sure they will. Thanks again, LaMason.
For sure. I appreciate you, my guy. Thank you.
That is LaMason Waller, and really cool to hear from him that Fesi Sitake, Noah Lugo, Bryce. Think of the connections he's got to this program. It's absolutely incredible how things like that happen. Noah Lugo, nobody would have guessed a kid coming from Texas as a quarterback would have played youth football from a kid down there in Hesperia, California. It's absolutely insane, but those connections, they exist, and they help, obviously, when it comes to the recruiting process. But you can tell LaMason, he is locked in with BYU, and that's really cool to hear him talk about how excited he is to be a part of the program, to hopefully add to the legacy of strong wide receivers. The nice part is he's got good size. They list him at 6'2", 170 on 24/7 Sports. He's a borderline 4-star prospect, according to 24/7 Sports as well. He's got an 88 rating, which is a high 3-star. I really, really like LaMason Waller, and you can tell that he's got passion for what BYU is and wants to be a part of it. And I think that he is the type of guy that BYU, I think, can find more of nationwide. Obviously, you got to hunt pretty hard to find guys like this, but you build those relationships, and the fact that he was a youth football teammate of Noah Lugo, that's just an extra kind of help when it comes to selling this kid on this program. And it doesn't really feel like LaMason had to be sold all that hard once Fesi Sitake started talking to him. I know Fesi Sitake has got a very, very good reputation on the recruiting trail. He does a very, very good job, A, of building relationships, and B, getting results in the form of getting commitments. Think about the wide receivers BYU's brought in. Cody Hagan is a 4-star prospect BYU landed not too long ago. Dominic McKenzie is expected to do some big things after he kind of sheds the mission rust. Alex LaMason Waller here, he's got to be thinking, all right, I see what Darius Lassiter is doing. I see what Chase Roberts is doing. I'm going to one-up that. I'm going to be more like Puka Nacua for the BYU football program. Success begets success when it comes to recruiting, and BYU, so long as they continue to have a high-powered attack in terms of throwing the ball and letting these wide receivers make plays, guess what? Guys like LaMason Waller and many, many more are going to be interested in playing for the BYU Cougars. All right, we will wrap up today's show with a accountability conversation. Now, this is going to be interesting. It includes Kalani Sitake. It includes myself, and we'll explain more about it coming up momentarily as we roll on right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big bang with our friends at FanDuel. They are America's #1 sports book. They got an incredible app that is super simple and easy to use. So you're in the middle of a game and you got that hunch that, hey, I got something like maybe a prop bet I want to take advantage of. You can check out all the latest stats, keep up to date with the live play-by-play, and do so much more on the same page where you're placing those bets with our friends at FanDuel. And right now, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Think about that. Your first $5 bet, it's only $5 out of your pocket, $200 in bonus bets added to your account. Bam. Like that. You can get started today by going to FanDuel.com. Take advantage of that offer. Once again, that's FanDuel.com to get started today. It's all courtesy of your friends over at FanDuel, as they are America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first view and or listen of the day. All right. This is going to be an accountability conversation. This is an interesting one because I have been going back and forth on if I really wanted to broach this topic, because it's obviously going to bring a scrutiny as it should. But at the same time, I feel like I owe it to you guys as listeners and supporters and just overall to BYU fans out there to talk a little bit about what's going on. There's a lot of conversation this week about Kalani Sitake wrapping up his media session on Monday, essentially unprompted, talking about the play calling against Baylor. He said that it was aggressive. He was very defensive of the perception out there in the media that it was conservative. What I think it was conservative is the term that he used. Well, I can't help but think that some of my comments in my postcast edition of the podcast led to that. So before we delve any further into this, I want to let you guys hear. I didn't edit this at all. I pulled it from BYU, the video they sent out to us in the media. Here is Kalani Sitake's full comments defending the play calling. I think also defending his coaching staff. So here you go. First off, here's Kalani Sitake, what he said on Monday if you missed it.
There's another thing to add just to talk about it. The way the team's working it's going really nicely. I'm proud of the team. There's this thought that we're not being aggressive in the second half when we have a lead. It's not true. Okay, so as we go through stuff, and we are not a conservative team. We've been very aggressive, and so in terms of conservative, we should have been a little bit more in this game, to be honest with you. But we faked the punt on 4th and 10, backed up in the second half. We threw the ball on 3rd and 9, got an interception. We threw the ball on 3rd and 2 late in the fourth quarter, got an interception. And if anything, we've had leads before and held on to them. Southern Illinois, Wyoming, Kansas State. So when people are talking about our program and talking about our mindset, we are an aggressive team. We like to find ways to make big plays. That's what we're going to do. And in terms of being conservative, I'd like to be conservative. Maybe that would have worked out a little bit more in this game if we would have done that. But we're working on it too. But when we're talking about getting better as a team, that's for all of us. Myself and other coaches, we can all improve. But in terms of trying to find ways to be aggressive in the game, I've always said that from the very beginning. We're an intense team. We want to be aggressive, but we're going to do what's best for the team in terms of trying to win. And maybe on this game, we should have been more aggressive when people are accusing us of being conservative. Maybe we should have been less aggressive and more conservative. So it's funny how things work. I wonder if anyone's accusing Alabama of being super conservative in their game too. So appreciate you guys. Just as you look through this and you look at the grand scope of things, we know what we're doing. We're working really hard on it. Just want everybody to kind of see the whole entire game as they go through it and critiquing us, which we don't mind feedback. That works for us too, but make sure that it's all on the up and up. Thanks, guys. Go Cougs.
That is Kalani Sitake, and I can respect him going to bat for his program. He is, as we have talked about earlier this season on this podcast, he's pretty salty this year, and he has been very quick to defend his team, defend his players, defend his coaching staff. And I've got to admit, I think part of that is this podcast's fault, and that's my fault. Because you know what? I'm the proprietor, essentially, of this podcast. There are people who ask me, Jake, who do you work with on the podcast? Me, myself, and I. That essentially comprises this podcast. I record it, I edit it, I post it, I do the social media for it. I do everything when it comes to this podcast. I am responsible editorially for the content of this podcast. I made some comments on the postcast edition of the podcast that were negative and kind of slammed the BYU offense in the second half of that game. I got roundly criticized, and for good reason, because as I acknowledged on our postcast, let me back up. The postcast edition of the podcast, for those of you who may be checking us out for the first time, and we call it a postcast because it comes post-game shortly after a BYU game. It is my initial reactions, watching the game and reacting to it shortly thereafter. I have not had the benefit of going back and rewatching the game, so it's kind of my raw feeling on the game, thinking about it. And for those of you who say, well, maybe you should stop and think about it's part of the deal when it comes to the Locked On Podcast Network. They like the raw emotion. They like the immediate reaction. It gets fans, obviously, their chance to weigh in on stuff. That's why I ask for it from our Locked On Cougars Insider group. If you have not joined today, join us. We were having a really good time over there. But also throw it on social media and the like. We use that as part of it. What I like to do is after I kind of say my piece on the postcast edition of the show, those of you who are everydayers and longtime listeners know that I go back and rewatch the game at least once, and based on how many times I rewind certain plays, it feels like I watched the entire game almost twice. And then on Monday, I do like to do what I call Film Review Monday and see if my thoughts, as compared to the postcast edition of the podcast, as well as that Monday edition, if they match up or if they're different. In this case, it was a very different feeling for me, and I am more in line with what Kalani liked to say. The only thing that I think he needed to add to that, and maybe he alluded to it, is that the reason why BYU's offense trended poorly in that game against Baylor was execution. That was the bigger deal that was lacking in that. And those of you, once again, who are everydayers and heard me talk on the postcast and said, Jake, whoa, slow up on what you're saying here. And then listen to me on Monday, heard two different takes of that game. That's the benefit of being able to go back and watch the game. Now, where does the accountability come into this? Well, I think that, like I said, I wasn't the only one who I'm sure that Kalani was responding to, but I can assure you that my comments were not, they were partly responsible for why he said what he said. And I also said I was going to plan to ask him, and I completely forgot at the moment during the press conference. So that's also an accountability on me that I failed, as I had mentioned, I was planning on asking about that. So I actually appreciate Kalani saying, I'll take this right out of your hands, Jake, and let's address it right now. I can appreciate the fact that Kalani wants to defend his program. And I can acknowledge the fact that I was a little bit off base with my comments in that postcast edition of the show. But that's the benefit of why I do what I do on this podcast. I go back, I can compare notes, look at how I felt in the moment, obviously in that postcast, and then talk more about it after having the opportunity to rewatch the game, get a better feel for things, and talk about it on our Monday edition of the show. Once again, criticism, it's part of the job. I have been in the sports media game for 15 years now. I've got a pretty good filter when it comes to being able to essentially let stuff pass. And if it bugs me, you got to say something pretty bad. And in that case, the only stuff that really gets to me is if you go personal. If it's stuff about the podcast, you want to weigh in with your thoughts and what I can improve, anything with regards to that, how I can improve my job, I'll take them, obviously, and do with them what I will. But if you get personal with me, I got a lot of pride, and that's where you poke the bear a little bit too much. Any of you have seen me from time to time on social media, I'm prone to snapping at people who come after me personally. I've done it on this podcast. But the bigger thing is I can acknowledge when I was wrong. That postcast, yeah, it slammed BYU's offense, and it was off base. But once again, I think I clarified that on Monday. I still have had some people hopping in my DMs this week, both some that have been like, Jake, way to go. That was awesome. I completely agree with you. Others who have said, you need to back off, dude. And, like I said, I will take all of it in stride, and I will take it under advisement and use it to be better. But I appreciate Kalani Sitake being willing to stand up and hold us in the media accountable. It's a two-way street here. There's a respect that exists between Kalani. He is not adversarial with literally anybody unless you cross him in a major, major way. Kalani is one of the most congenial, best human beings I have literally ever had the privilege of getting to know. I am lucky to cover him when it comes to BYU and what he does with the BYU football program. And it doesn't hurt that they're 5-0 right now. Trust me, our download numbers, our views on YouTube, they testify to how good life is with BYU right now. But I can appreciate the fact that he was willing to speak out, defend his program, and also essentially hold me as well as others accountable out there as well for our comments. So, yeah, I don't really have any conclusion I want to draw from this and share with you guys, but I just wanted to kind of acknowledge it out there. Postcasts are not going anywhere. And I may be off base once again because my initial feeling on a game may be different after I rewatch it. And that's just part of the deal. It's a daily podcast, folks. I'm going to speak my mind. You're not going to have me get up here and be a teleprompter and just read you the news. That's not what I'm paid to do. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to share my opinion on BYU sports, something I have spent my entire life reading, writing, talking about it, essentially falling in love with it as a young kid. That's my passion. And I'm going to continue to bring that passion every single day. So once again, I can appreciate Kalani Sitake speaking out on it, but also at the same time, it's a two-way street here, and I can be accountable for my comments. And I think that I got called out this week, rightly, but I do think I clarified it in the end as well. And I just wanted to kind of have a little conversation about that, because I think we too often in sports media kind of get in this headspace. We got this ego. It's our way or the highway. It's not that way. There are times you got to take a step back and kind of reassess. And I'll try to be better about it, but I will continue to speak my mind. I can assure you of that. And it's kind of an interesting dynamic I've been playing back and forth in my mind all week long. So yeah, that's going to do it. So a big thank you as always for you guys' support. I really do appreciate all y'all who support this show. We've got Division I coaches, administrators at various universities. We've got sitting college football head coaches, Kalani among them. I believe at least he heard about what I said, I think in part, but the support, even if you are the lay fan or if you're an athletic director of a Power 4 university, regardless, thank you for the support of the podcast. Once again, I say it all the time. Thank you for making it your first listen of the day and or view if you're watching this on YouTube. And as always, thank you to all y'all who are everydayers and ride and die with us every single day right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.